Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? We've got some seriously wild stories to unpack today. It's like a sci-fi movie crossed with a nature documentary. And then, well, we sprinkle in some biblical mysteries too, just for fun.
Buckle up, because today we've got robots demanding Sundays off, scientists making mice see through, and even the possibility of bringing woolly mammoths back to life.
Yeah, we're covering a lot of ground today. So, to kick things off, let's head over to Germany, where, the future of work is facing a pretty unexpected hurdle, Sunday laws.
It sounds crazy, right? But it's true. You see, German companies are using more and more robots these days, but they're running into a bit of a legal issue because Germany has these really strict laws about working on Sundays, meant to give everyone a day of rest. But now everyone's asking, well, do those laws apply to robots?
I mean, it's kind of hilarious in a way, right? Like, companies are actually trying to figure out if robots need a day off.
It is funny, but it also makes you think about some pretty big questions. I mean, if robots can work 204/7, what does that mean for human workers? Like, are we all headed towards a future where robots have all the jobs and humans just, sit around and relax?
Well, I wouldn't mind a little more relaxing. But I guess the bigger question is, could we find a way to share the workload? Maybe everyone gets a 3-day weekend because the robots are picking up the slack.
That's certainly one possibility. But before we start planning our extended weekends, let's move from robot labor laws to something even more mind-bending: biblical simulations.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain that one.
All right, so there's this professor, Melvin Forbson, and he has this theory that the Bible hints at the idea that we could be living in a simulation.
Whoa, okay, that's a big claim. What's his evidence?
Well, he points to a bunch of different passages, but one of the most interesting ones is from the book of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And Forbson argues that maybe the Word could be interpreted as like the computer code that makes up our simulated reality.
So instead of a divine creator, we have a cosmic programmer.
Yeah, essentially. And there are other passages about creation that Forbson connects to this idea of a programmer setting up the universe, like building a virtual world in a video game almost.
So we're all just players in this giant cosmic video game.
Well, that's the theory. It definitely makes you think, right? Even if we don't buy into the simulation theory completely, it raises some interesting questions about what reality even is.
Definitely makes you think. But while we're on the subject of strange and maybe even a little unsettling science, scientists have actually figured out how to make mice see through.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? Researchers at Stanford University figured out how to do it with just a regular food dye, tartrazine. It's the stuff that makes chips and soda yellow.
Wait, so the stuff that makes my Doritos orange can make skin transparent. How did that even work?
Basically, it has to do with how the tartrazine interacts with light when it's mixed with water. It messes with something called the refractive index, which means it changes how light bends when it passes through the skin. And under the right light, boom, the skin looks transparent.
So they're not actually removing the skin or anything, it's more like an optical illusion.
Exactly. But even though it's an illusion, it could have huge implications, especially for medical research. Imagine being able to see someone's veins and bones and even their organs without having to cut them open.
Yeah, that's incredible. Although, when I first heard about this, I have to admit, I was picturing a nightclub with a dance floor full of, glowing skeletons. Could be quite the show.
Well, hey, maybe someone will run with that idea. But you're right, the potential for medical monitoring is really exciting. We could track blood flow and monitor organ function and even see how diseases are progressing all in real time without surgery.
It's pretty amazing. Okay, but let's shift gears for a minute. We gotta talk about Elon Musk, right? He's still super determined to get that Mars colony going by 2028. Pretty ambitious.
Oh, definitely ambitious. Maybe even a little too ambitious. Some scientists are raising some serious red flags about the health risks involved.
I'm guessing it's a bit more than just missing good pizza.
Yeah, much more. The biggest worry is the radiation exposure. We're talking about levels that could cause all sorts of health problems: green skin, messed up bones, even genetic mutations. And honestly, that's just the beginning.
So basically, we might be risking the health of entire generations just to be the first ones on Mars. It's a pretty heavy ethical question, isn't it?
It is a big question. We need to figure out, does the excitement of exploring outweigh the potential harm to the people who might be born and raised on Mars? It's something we need to really grapple with, especially as space travel becomes more and more accessible.
It's a lot to consider. But, speaking of bringing things back, scientists are actually trying to bring back the woolly mammoth. It sounds crazy, but it's actually happening.
And you know what? They're aiming for 2028 too. seems like that year is going to be a big one for humanity, one way or another.
So how do they bring back something that's been gone for thousands of years? Do they have a secret time machine or something?
Not quite a time machine, but they are using some seriously advanced genetic technology. Like, they're taking DNA from Asian elephants, which is actually pretty similar to mammoth DNA, and they're using it to create hybrid embryos.
Hybrid mammoth embryos. Wow. What's the plan with those?
The plan is to put them into surrogate elephants. The hope is that eventually an elephant will give birth to something that's essentially a woolly mammoth.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask, isn't this a little bit like playing God? I mean, what happens if we bring back an extinct species? Could it mess up the ecosystems?
Those are totally valid concerns, and scientists are wrestling with those questions right now. It's a risky move, but it could have some incredible benefits too. But let's switch gears for a sec and talk about something a little smaller, but maybe just as impactful. Indestructible ants.
Indestructible ants. Okay, now you have my attention. What makes them so tough?
Well, we're talking about a species called Tapenomum magnum. They're spreading all over Europe like crazy, and the thing is, they have multiple queens. That means they can start new colonies super fast.
Multiple queens. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a recipe for a serious ant problem. But are they really indestructible?
Well, they're definitely resilient. Like, they can chew through concrete, they get into electrical cables, they even mess up computer systems. They'll basically eat anything.
So we're talking kids scared to go outside, internet outages, maybe even power grids going down. All because of ants. It sounds like something out of a movie.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the big question is, can we stop them before they spread even further and cause even more chaos?
Well, let's hope so. Before they, decide to take over the world. But from indestructible ants to something that might be even scarier, let's talk about artificial intelligence. I know it seems like everyone's talking about AI these days, but this is worth paying attention to.
I think a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed by all the AI stuff, yeah. But this is big. We're talking about a new model from OpenAI, the same folks who made ChatGPT. And get this, this one can actually think.
Okay, think is a pretty big word when it comes to AI. What does that even mean?
It means this AI can reason and come up with strategies and solve problems in ways that used to be like exclusively human things.
Whoa, so it's not just crunching numbers or following instructions. It's actually understanding stuff.
Exactly. And get this AI just outperformed a bunch of PhD students on some physics tests. Not just in speed, but in how deep and creative its answers were.
So it's basically smarter than a PhD student?
Well, in some ways, yeah. And remember, we haven't even reached the stage of what they call artificial general intelligence. That's when AI is smarter than humans at basically everything. We're just seeing glimpses of its potential, and it's already changing fields like medicine in incredible ways.
Speaking of medicine, what are some of the good things AI is doing in healthcare?
Oh, so many things. It's being used to find cancer early on, help surgeons operate more precisely, and even come up with personalized treatment plans based on someone's genes.
So it's not all doom and gloom with AI. There's a lot of potential for good.
Absolutely. But we also need to talk about the potential downsides. Like, as AI gets smarter, we need to be really careful about how we develop it and use it, especially when it comes to things like, well, autonomous warfare.
AI weapons?
Yeah. Imagine AI controlling weapon systems, making life or death decisions on the battlefield without any human input. That's something we need to think about really carefully.
AI weapons, indestructible ants, resurrected mammoths, see-through mice. It's a lot to process. And that's just the first part of our deep dive today.
Yeah. It really makes you wonder, like, what else is out there, right? What haven't we discovered yet?
Totally. And speaking of discoveries, remember those transparent mice we talked about? Well, it turns out there's this tree with an amazing story, and some people are even connecting it back to, like, ancient biblical stories.
Oh, yeah, this is cool. So they found this seed, right, in a cave in the Judean desert. And get this. The seed was over 1,000 years old.
1,000-year-old seed.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, they actually managed to get it to sprout. It grew into a tree. They named it Methuselah.
Methuselah, like the guy from the Bible who lived for like 900 years. That's a pretty fitting name.
Right, and it gets even more interesting. Methuselah is part of this Commiphora genus, but its genes are unique. Scientists are thinking it might be related to this Zori tree, or balm of Gilead. It's mentioned in the Bible.
Hold on, are we talking about a real-life biblical tree with, like, healing powers?
Well, maybe not mystical healing powers, but it's true that Methuselah's leaves and sap have these things called pentacyclic triterpenoids in them. They're natural anti-inflammatories and antioxidants, so they are used in some skin treatments today.
So maybe not a miracle cure, but this ancient tree could still have some secrets that could help us.
Yeah.
But let's get back to those Martian settlers. Remember we were talking about all those health risks? Well, it seems like there might be an even bigger problem than we realized.
Yeah, so researchers at Johns Hopkins Medical Center sent some human heart tissue up to the International Space Station. They wanted to see how being in low gravity affects the heart, and the results were not good.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, after just a month in space, the heart's ability to, pump blood got a lot weaker, significantly weaker. The heart started beating irregularly, and there were changes at the molecular and even genetic level.
So even if we can protect those Martian settlers from radiation, their hearts might just give out anyway. That's a big problem.
Yeah, it's a serious obstacle, and scientists are trying to figure out how to fix it. They're looking into medications that might help, but this study really shows just how complicated space travel is. There's so much we still don't know about how the human body reacts to it.
Fingers crossed they figure it out. I'm still hoping for that vacation home on Mars someday. But speaking of things that might be watching us, remember those indestructible ants? It seems like they might not be the only ones with secrets. There's been some talk about some strange objects in the skies over Austria.
Yeah, this isn't your typical UFO sighting. We're talking about potential images of a top-secret fleet of U.S. spy satellites. They're called F-Riders, which stands for Future Imagery Architecture.
Future imagery architecture. Sounds kind of scary, honestly. What are these satellites supposed to be doing?
Well, the details are super classified, but from what little we know, they're part of a U.S. program to gather really, really high-resolution images.
Like how high resolution are we talking?
Some people say they can see objects as small as a few centimeters from orbit.
Wait, so these satellites can see? Look, what kind of shoes I'm wearing? That's creepy.
Well, maybe not that detailed, but they're definitely incredibly powerful, and it raises some big questions about privacy and surveillance.
Yeah, where's the line between security and, just spying on everyone? It's a conversation we definitely need to have. But while we're talking about technology advancing super fast, let's go back to those robots in Germany for a second.
Remember how we started with the whole "do robots get Sundays off" thing? Well, it looks like those robots are getting a serious upgrade.
Oh yeah, what kind of upgrade?
Well, you might remember Atlas, right? The robot from Boston Dynamics, the one that could do backflips and stuff?
Oh yeah, Atlas. That was impressive.
Well, they're retiring Atlas, and they're replacing it with a whole new generation of even more advanced robots.
So is this the robot takeover we've all been worried about?
Not exactly, but we are entering this new era where humans and robots are going to be working together a lot more. These new robots are faster and stronger and way more adaptable than the old ones, and they have even more advanced AI, so they can learn new things and solve problems on the fly.
It's exciting, but also a little scary. What happens to all the jobs that the robots could end up doing?
It's a valid concern, but it's not just about jobs disappearing. It's about reimagining what work even means. Maybe robots will take over the boring and dangerous stuff, and humans can focus on things that require creativity and problem solving and relationship building.
So it's not robots versus humans. It's more like robots and humans working as a team.
Exactly. It's about using technology to make our lives better and create a better future for everyone.
I like the sound of that. But speaking of technology that's changing the world super fast, remember those AI models that are supposedly smarter than PhD students? It sounds like AI is making a big impact in another area. Warfare.
And this is where things get a little more serious. We're seeing the development of AI-powered weapon systems. They can identify and attack targets incredibly fast and accurately.
So we're talking about machines making decisions about who lives and who dies on the battlefield. That's pretty terrifying.
It is. It raises some really big ethical questions, like if we let machines decide who to kill, what does that say about us as humans?
It's something we need to be talking about right now, before it's too late. We're entering a new era where the lines between humans and machines are getting blurrier and blurrier. And it's not just about robots and AI. It's about everything from ancient seeds to space travel to, well, indestructible ants. I feel like we've just crammed a whole lifetime of news into one deep dive. Robots wanting weekends off, the possibility that we're all living in a simulation. It's been a wild ride.
It really shows you just how fast things are changing, doesn't it? And with so much happening, it's tough to wrap your head around it all.
Yeah, for real. So where do we even go from here? What does it all mean?
Well, that's where you come in, dear listener. We've given you a glimpse of all this crazy stuff, the science, the technology, the philosophy, but now it's your turn to think about it. Ask questions, form your own opinions, keep digging deeper into these topics.
We've talked about some pretty incredible things today. AI that could totally change medicine, bringing extinct animals back to life, even the challenges of building a human colony on Mars. But we've also touched on some pretty serious issues, like the ethics of AI weapons and what happens when technology gets out of control.
The decisions we make now, both as individuals and as a society, are going to shape the future. It's up to all of us to really think about these advancements and make sure we're creating a future that works for everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this thought. What does it even mean to be human in a world that's being reshaped by technology so quickly? A world where robots might demand weekends off, ants could be plotting world domination, and hey, maybe we are just living in a giant simulation.
Never stop asking those big questions. Keep learning, keep exploring. The world's changing faster than ever, and the best thing you can do is be ready to adapt, to evolve, and to think critically about the future we're all building together.
Thanks for joining us on this crazy journey. Until next time, stay curious.